Hey guys, it's Sam, and this is my March wrap-up. I've had time to make videos, but I haven't had time to edit them. And I've barely had time to make videos, so sometimes videos are gonna come a little late. That's okay. But if you want more consistent content from me, I'm gonna be posting things on Patreon, like audio reviews and things like that are a little more like lo-fi, maybe not needing to edit stuff as much. So you might see more content on there if you are interested in that. We're also doing a year-long D&D type Choose Your Own Adventure reading challenge. So yeah, if you're interested in any of that, check that out. But I ended up reading 6 books in March and DNF'd 1. The first book I read was God Killer by Hannah Kinnear. This is the first book in a adult fantasy. I think it's gonna end up being a trilogy. Only 2 books are out. I think the second book just came out. But for such a short book, it is definitely more of like that high fantasy vibe. This is following a number of different characters, a god killer, a girl who is attached to a little god, that little god, and a knight. And their stories eventually intersect because years ago there was a war against the gods, between the gods. Basically all the gods have been, not all of them killed, but many of them. That's why we have things like god killers in this story. And they're all heading to the old capital that is still very like fraught. People aren't really supposed to be there. God still exists there. It's dangerous. So they end up having to all like cross paths and go on this quest to this place. And I loved this. The vibes of this were great. If you like own world mythology, you're gonna dig this. It has all these elements of what makes a god and how gods kind of appear and worship and like gods needing worship and gods connecting to people and powers and all this stuff. So I highly enjoyed this. There were twists and turns in here that I was not expecting. For such a short book, it really does pack a nice punch and like an emotional punch. This definitely has those like found family vibes. And yeah, I highly enjoyed it. I gave this, I think, between 4.5 and 5 stars. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Like I said, I think the second book just came out recently, so I'll be getting that hopefully soon. The second book I read in March was Ostara, which is one of my little witchy books. I've mentioned before that I've been reading some of these books that are in a collection from a sort of a cult publisher that follows all of the like witchy holidays, Ostara being one of them. I have feelings about the name actual Ostara. If you want to hear more about that, I'm probably going to talk about witchcraft stuff more on Patreon and not actually post it on any channel. But this is just a book that talks about traditions of essentially the spring equinox. That's what Ostara is. So equinox, rituals, history of it, current traditions related to it, all that kind of stuff. So I really like these little books, these little Llewellyn Sabbath Essentials books. So I've been getting all of them since, well, just since Yule, basically. But I enjoyed this. I didn't like this one as much as Yule, but I think because there's not as much grandeur associated with spring equinox as there is with Yule. But yeah, this one was just like fine. I then listened to Psyche and Eros by Luna McNamara. This is one of those retellings of Greek mythology, you know, elaborating on a story, changing some things like that. And this is a dual POV following Psyche and Eros and that story. And I really enjoyed this. I think this was along the same lines for me as like I mean, they're right here, like Madeline Miller, a Genevieve Gornichek kind of thing, who I'll talk about in a second. So those are my sort of top tier mythology retelling authors thus far, because they make you care about the myth even more, and there's some like emotionality to it. There's definitely a few authors that have done the whole mythology retelling thing lately that I don't really connect with, that just feels more like following the main story. And this still does that, but there was definitely more of a connection to it. And just like, I found it interesting. This is, again, told in both perspectives of Psyche and Eros, and just gave some like background and also connecting into like other parts of myth and things, which I tend to like when there's a lot of crossover. So I would say if you really liked Circe by Madeline Miller, you would probably like this. I gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars. Then, speaking of really great mythology retellings, I read The Weaver and the Witch Queen by Genevieve Gornichek. So good. And this is a retelling of a Viking Age myth about a woman who is a witch that eventually becomes the Queen of Norway. And but this is so much more than that. This has, okay, anyway, this is following 2 characters, again, the Weaver and the Witch Queen. These are 2 characters who were best friends growing up, and at the very beginning of the story, a seer comes through the town, the village, whatever, and basically says that the one girl is essentially cursed, and that had happened a while ago where a seer came through when she was like a little kid, but then in the second time a seer comes through like 10 years later, basically says like all of these girls are now intertwined and their fates are intertwined and there's like darkness there and whatever. So they have like these intertwined fates. Then fast forward to when they're adults, one of the girls has gone and become a witch, has been studying as a witch for quite some time, and the other one has just been living her life in like her, you know, like little village, and disaster strikes. There are people attacking the girl that's still in the village and her family, and that no one knows why, and the girls' lives like intersect again, and everything goes from there, and you kind of like see what's, you know, to come as far as like the history and stuff. It's really good. They have to go on like sort of like a questy thing. This is like the atmosphere of this like Viking Age history, the connection between these girls who are essentially soul sisters, these like young women. There are romances in each for each character, and one is more like a sweet, I mean, both of them can be like sort of enemies to lovers in a way, but in like ways that are like more about circumstance. One is much more fiery, one's much more sweet. They are just two very different personalities, and they have very distinct voice in like their chapters and stuff. And just like the way that the magic works even is really cool, because it's sort of about like going between worlds a little bit. Yeah, it's really good. And just like the mythology behind witches like in Norway and things is all wrapped in. So I really enjoyed this, loved this, 5 out of 5 stars, one of my favorite books of this year. Not shocking at all, because Genevieve Gornichek is one of my favorite authors as far as retellings go. So can't wait to see what she puts out next. And then I read Waking the Witch by Pam Grossman. Pam Grossman is a podcaster that I've listened to before who does like a witchy podcast. This book was not quite, I mean, it was what I expected based on the synopsis, but I wish it would have been more. This is a mix of memoir and commentary on just like media depiction of witches. So there's chapters on like teen witches, there's chapters on witches as monstrous, there's chapters on like the witch trials, there's chapters on I don't know, I think like seductresses, whatever. And she pulls in like both history and media and like her own sort of experience with witchcraft and whatever. And this was just like sort of fine for me. I would have liked this to be a little bit more, I don't know, it felt so surface level in a lot of ways, and there were like, it felt a little too like girl bossy at times. I think this came out shortly after 2020, maybe 2020 or 2021, and it's very sort of tainted by the politics of the time and what's going on. Like it's very of its time, like you can tell that it was written around then, and like the Women's March and all of that. So it's not exclusionary to like other genders, but it definitely does focus a lot. Like it says like everybody can be a witch, but it also definitely is like women, but in a way that I found more just like, okay, like it felt very like 101 level, you know. I was like, I'm beyond this. So this was fine. This was like a 3-star, 2.5, 3-star. It was kind of cute to see like talk of some of these media depictions of witches and things that I remember from like being a kid. But yeah, very surface level for sure. And then the book that I DNF'd was The Dragons of Deepwood Fen by Bradley Pibaleo. This I am DNFing sort of for now, / I want to read it in a different format. This book is essentially just about like politics in this area. There's like multiple POVs. I got 100 pages into it and barely know anything, but like this is a world where dragons are present. There's different kinds of dragons. Different dragons do different things, and different dragons cause like sort of different energies. And there's a bunch of like political machinations things going on as well. So there's like, I don't know, 7 POVs in this. And I was really looking forward to this because who doesn't like a dragon? And Bradley Baleo wrote the Song of Shattered Sands. I'm seeing if they're close to me right now. But that series is one of my favorites. It's still ongoing and I'm still reading it. I only read the first 2 books, but I really like it. I think what the problem was with this for me a little bit was his writing is very slow, which is fine, but there were so many characters that like you can't be that slow when we only see these characters every once in a while, and it's such a slow build, where the Shattered Sand series has 1 character, maybe 2 that you follow. So even in the slowness, like it feels very like rich, where this was like, I know there's a lot going on. I know you're building up a lot, but I just can't get connected to it for some reason. So I actually want to return to this on audio, just like none of the libraries that I have library cards for have it on audio, and I don't want to use Audible. So yeah, I don't know what's going to happen there. I might just be like, hi, please get this. Because I would still, like, I think there's a story there that I could enjoy. I just couldn't, like, I wasn't motivated at all to pick it up in physical copy. And she's chunky. Like, look at that. She's a chunky girl. So, yeah, this is a put down for now, but if I can't get a hold of an audiobook, then probably put down forever. So yeah, those are the books that I read in March. Comment below, let me know how your reading month in March went. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye.